Hello everybody and welcome back to another episode of the Drogon Build. It has been quite a while since I uploaded on here. As you can see behind me, I've been a bit busy with other projects. I have done quite a lot of work on the dragon since you last saw it. You won't be able to tell just by looking at it, so this episode is going to be kind of a reboot just to get you all caught up what I've done and ready for the next episode. The hardest parts are all done, the mechanical aspects, it's all working now. I've got everything working, so there's nothing slowing me down. The rest of it's just cosmetics. So I'm estimating within the next month or so, this thing's going to be looking a lot better and almost done. All right, so here we go again. I'm Michael, that's Ghost, and this is the Drogon Build Part 4. Okay, so the last time you saw it, it looked a little something like this, mostly made out of PVC. If you're wondering how to bend the PVC into shape like this, you just take some sand and heat it up on a stove or something. Once it's all hot, pour it into the PVC. And after a few seconds, the PVC will be soft enough for you to bend it into shape. You could just use a heat gun to heat it up, but you'd more likely be folding the pipe instead of bending it, whereas if you have the sand in there, it keeps its shape. The steel frame ended up being far too heavy, far too bulky. I ended up removing it. It was good because I could have the dragon just standing on his own, but in the end I decided it was better to just not have the steel and go about it a different way. And again, the wings, they ended up being too heavy as well. I think that was mainly due to the material that I used. So I ended up taking all that off and just starting again with them. Now the head is probably the only part of this whole build that I haven't had any issues with. The last time you saw it, it wasn't quite at this level, but I have put out a new video. It's a sort of a time lapse of me building the head, so go and check that one out. So this is where I'm replacing the steel crossbeam. This part actually holds the dragon up off the ground, essentially. This is what the wings will attach to. I just decided instead of a bunch of hinges that determined which way I could actually move, I'm just using these rings here, so I can easily take the wings off when I need to, and I can still move, it can still hold the weight. I think in the end this was the better option. And this will make it easier for me to disassemble the whole thing. It's just a simple one bolt in each wing that holds them on. And here is the wing after I took the material off, it's the skeleton part of it. And I managed to find this other material here that's much lighter. I believe they actually make kites out of this type of stuff, but it had a good texture to it, and as I said, it was a lot lighter. It wasn't cheap, but I think it's going to work perfectly. And how I put that on is pretty straightforward. I just laid it over, used contact cement to stick it onto the main parts of the wing. In the beginning I wasn't too worried about the weight of these wings because I planned to have an actuator do the heavy lifting for me, so I didn't think it was going to matter too much if they were too heavy. What I didn't think about is the fact that the heavier they are, the more strain is on that actuator, and that actuator has to be attached to the rest of the frame. So as you'll see soon, it puts a lot of pressure on the rest of the body. I would have liked to have used a more leathery sort of looking material for this, but as I said, it's going to be too heavy, and I think that the spectacle of this thing standing up and opening its wings up is going to be enough anyway. I mean, if you just look at that, they're about 3 meters each for the wings, so that's quite large. Now with the feet, I didn't want to buy expensive stilts because I've already spent so much money on this already. I just got some buckets and some cheap sandals, and I just cut out a small piece of plyboard to put in between. Now I was debating for a while whether or not I wanted to use stilts, because without them it's a lot easier to walk, and also the angle of the back is much, I think it looks a lot better like this with the head sitting higher up. But if I was to put the stilts on, the head drops down a little more, obviously, because the back comes up, so it doesn't look as good while walking this way, but then when I stand up with the stilts, obviously I have extra height, and in the end that was more important, so I went with the stilts. And all up I would have spent maybe $30 on these stilts, you know, just a couple of buckets, a pair of really cheap sandals and a little bit of plyboard that I already had. They work well enough, relatively comfortable, and while I'm leaning over I have the wings supporting my upper half, so it's not hard to walk around at all. And the only thing left to do before I could actually test everything out was attach the dragon to my body so that I'm wearing it's not wearing me. And just got some of the strapping and a few of these little clips here and sewed it together into a harness that's adjustable, just in case I put on a bit of weight, and also so that I can make sure that it's actually tight against my body. So with it all laid out here on the ground, you can see that testing it inside is probably not going to happen, so each time I wanted to test it I had to pack the whole thing up, drag it out the front. It was a bit of an ordeal, but here we go. The way that it's supposed to work is this actuator here is attached to these two cables. These cables run down through these rings. One of the cables is attached to the upper part of the wing, and so when it pulls on that cable it will fold the wings up in half, and because of the way that I set it up, as it pulls on that one it's actually releasing the tension off of the other cable. So with one motion I'm pulling on one cable and releasing the slack on the other, and as it pulls one, you can see the wings, both of them are supposed to lift like that, only one was working at the moment for some reason. I think the cables are a bit uneven here, but that's actually releasing the slack off the other one, and the other one is attached to the lower half of the wing. So as the actuator comes back down, it's going to pull on that cable, which releases the wings. Gravity will unfold them, and then this actuator is going to pull on that cable that's attached to the lower half, and that's actually what lifts the wings off the ground when I stand up. In theory, I thought it was a really good design, using one actuator to do both functions, lifting the wings and unfolding them. I was so sure of it, and with all that pressure on this one spot here, what could possibly go wrong?
Okay, ready? Start doing the wings. Keep going. Yay.
I would love to be able to tell you that everything worked perfectly after that, but the truth is, it didn't. There's a lot more issues than I was expecting. Obviously with a build this big, there's always going to be something. I was hoping to get all of this into the one video, but this one's already gotten a bit long, so stick around for the next one. It's going to end on a happier note, I can promise you. So yeah, until then, thanks for watching.